What's up, LEGO builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Last week I did a deep dive into droid bases and their issues, but I only focused on one type, the drawbridge protected classic rectangle. But there's more, and they're actually pretty cool. So today we're going to explore some other options as I build 3 droid bases in 3 days by constructing giant satellites, installing functional lights, and busting out some goated droid vehicles. If you like droids and wish LEGO would make more Separatist LEGO sets, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and let's get started. I've been doing a lot of base plate mocks recently, so I'm mixing things up and stealing this partially built freeform base from last Saturday's live stream. I want to build part of an underground droid base, and this will be a hidden cargo entrance with a landing pad for transport ships to use. This freeform build was going to be a peaceful clone encampment mock, but now it's being repurposed for the glorious Separatist war effort. I want to make sure I have enough space for a snot landing pad to sit in the terrain, so that's what's going in before anything else. As I said in the last video, there are next to no droid bases shown in the Clone Wars, but we do see a couple, one of which is the underground research base home to the nefarious Dr. Nuvo Vindi, who's definitely not based on any real-life historical people.
Yes, it was wiped from the galaxy generations ago.
Anyways, his hideout shows the Seps have a mind for hiding their bases underground just like this one. Since this is going to be mostly built into a hill, the base will be covered. I really only need to build the doorway, which longtime viewers know is a classic Coconut move. But I still want to have an interesting, well-made mock, so I'm adding lots of detail, like a caution strip so no one trips up on their way in. I'm building a couple panels to go on either side of the door. Doing plate panels like this gives me the opportunity to add more greebling to the wall, like vent pieces, cheese slopes, and ingots. Once these are secured between a couple stacks of slopes, I have a very detailed looking wall that didn't need any crazy techniques or bricks. The slope makes it so the entire wall panel can sit at whatever angle I choose. I struggled on what to do with the door, since when it comes to those, I'm about as creative as Disney is when cooking up Star Wars shows. I thought through a couple different designs, even one that actually opened, and then just decided to make a doorway and say the door's open. There's no point in slaving over a clever door design when it's not even going to be visible anyways. I even added 2 towers of brick at either side of the opening to give the illusion of an open door. You know me, I'll go to great lengths to not actually have to build a functional door. This base will have a bit of an interior, a tunnel leading back into the hill, and I want to do something I almost never do in a build challenge, which is adding functioning lights. I normally reserve lights for my more detailed large-scale mocks because of how complicated they can be, but I've had a lot of practice recently, and the installation process is much faster, which means potential major lighting upgrades for these simpler builds in the future. That's basically it for the actual base. Now I need to pretend this is a potential big news scandal and cover everything up. On either side of the doorway sits the hillside. I used to take my time and build very rounded, smooth hills with lots of plate to smooth out any blocky steps, basically the opposite of what I'm currently doing, but then I discovered LEGO's makeup grass. It can take any basic Minecraft looking hill or plain and turn it into a flowing sea of green. One day I would love to sit down and actually build a big underground base complete with garages, tunnels leading to different exits, and a command center, all built into a very unassuming hill, giving new meaning to the phrase "the hills have eyes." Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that, or if this would just be kind of lame, since now that I think about it, from the outside it would just kind of look like this. Seriously though, I love the LEGO grass pieces. If you don't have any, I would suggest investing in a few hundred. It's like nature's greebling. I also added patches of plate to the ground to make little hills and holes so the grass patches would look more wild and uneven, and less like your grandma's neatly manicured lawn. This base is relying heavily on its natural camouflage to protect it from attacks, but I don't want to leave it completely undefended, so on top goes a little camouflage automatic turret to take out any pesky commandos snooping around the area. And now it's time to see what kind of top secret materials the Separatists are messing around with. It's a gloomy day on Seleucami as a Separatist shuttle deposits top secret cargo to a base in the uncharted hills of the north. After the Republic revealed their EMP bomb that only affected machines and vehicles, the Seps spared no expense into finding a weapon of their own that would destroy organic Republic targets but leave any CIS forces unharmed. And these heavily guarded and securely locked crates are the prototypes of what will soon become known as the Defoliator round. They also brought an arcade game taken from a destroyed Republic base for research purposes. This next base is also inspired by an existing droid base of sorts, the Cyber Center on Anaxis, where Rex realizes Echo is still alive. And I must say, ever since diving into droid bases, I've been impressed. Other than the traditional ones I talked about last week, the Separatists have some pretty cool ones with interesting functions and features that I didn't really think about when making last week's video. Honestly, they seem to be more diverse than what the Republic had. Even the Citadel, which is technically a prison, meets all the criteria of a base, so I think it should fall under that category as well. Dang, I should have made a video called Why Clone Bases Suck and Droid Bases Don't. Hopefully we'll see see an increase in LEGO droid bases moving forward. Anyways, back to the build. I'm constructing some panels and adding designs to them, since this may be a military installation, but it doesn't have to look like a boring gray blob. I had no real plan in mind, just threw together a bunch of different shaped tiles, which are supposed to represent rivets, jogs, pop-outs, or other random stuff you see on sci-fi bases. One panel has a small door in it to be used in case of emergencies or for a quick snack run. Before the panels go in, I need to build the inside, which is just going to be one big room for sleepovers, I mean very important meetings and data transferring. With all this droid content happening, I really should have invested in the tactical droid to oversee the troops and hang out in the command center. I think it's a really cool minifig, it's just hard to justify that price tag. I know everyone loves a good interior, but I'm much more interested in building exterior, which is more fun in my opinion, and that's usually what's on display, which is why my bases tend to look like this on the outside and this on the inside. The Cyber Center appears to have a pretty flat roof, which is fine by me. Most of my bases are open topped anyways, but I am going to leave a big hole in the middle so I can add computers and showcase those scheming bad guys at work. I'm not stopping here though. I want the top to have a little more of a shape to it, so I'm employing some large quarter cylinder slopes which are laying around in bunches left over from Magito. I guess these will be the next batch of niche parts I struggle to find a use for after a large scale mock. I just wish it didn't have to be such an expensive piece. I'm creating a little dome of sorts for my satellite to sit on, which is going to be the most important part of the base, since a Cyber Center without a comically large satellite is like a lightsaber with no kyber crystal. It's just there for looks. I got really inspired to build a giant satellite dish from this epic Ren Varmok built by Vader's basement, but I didn't have enough of the big wedge plates, so I had to settle for a much smaller molded dish piece. At this point, I just started throwing things together that looked cool. I knew it was going to be brick built, but I still wanted it to look smooth and round, so I made sure to include lots of slopes and wedge plates. I ringed the whole dish with some just for that extra cool factor, and because who puts a plain satellite dish on their build anyways? I stuck an antenna at the center and added 3 others angled inward so everything meets at the middle. I don't know what the purpose of these is, but apparently this is what a good satellite needs to transmit those Saturday morning cartoons. I've never built a mock on an axis before, so I had to take advantage of this opportunity and do a little terrain work. I think this is a super underrated place to build. The dark bluish gray ground contrasts with the dark red foliage very well, and I added some dark red highlights running through the ground for a little extra spice. And lucky for me, the LEGO succulent sets come with a plant that looks like it was made to grow here, so I threw in a couple of those, and let me say, this is looking real good. I definitely got to revisit this place again in the future. And you know, me being me, I got to sneak a couple clones into this video. The Separatists know something big is coming. Having seized the vital and access shipyards, the droid forces have dug in and repulsed all Republic efforts to retake it. A remote communications base on an axis is in chaos. Everyone is running around, taking reports, and doing whatever this is. A massive Republic fleet has just been observed dropping out of hyperspace as a group of commandos tried to ambush and disable the base before the intel on the fleet could be passed on. Luckily, elite commander droids were stationed at this vital outpost, and the surviving commandos have been taken prisoner, and the Separatists have a chance to prepare for this next invasion. Last week, I built a droid base that kickstarted this whole droid fixation. I really liked it. In fact, when it came time to take it apart, I felt like its creative purposes still hadn't been fully achieved. So I'm going to reuse it for this video, after changing it up a bit, of course. My all-time favorite era for droid content is from the Trade Federation. Episode 1 is my favorite Star Wars movie, with the iconic brown and tan tanks and ships leveling forests and rolling across the green plains. Patrolling the streets and putting down any resistance were hordes of battle droids who hadn't yet been turned into the bumbling clowns we see in the Clone Wars. Now, the only time we see the Trade Federation action is on Naboo, which is where this base happens to be located, so just felt like the perfect opportunity to build a Trade Federation mock. We see lots of droids getting dropped off and some sent to patrol the swamp, so it makes sense to have a few forward operating bases like this out in the jungles to take care of those pesky Gungans. I made some much needed changes to the front gate so I could use the classic 07 MTT, which honestly is a top 5 Star Wars set of all time in my opinion. Now it's time to round up some Gungans and secure the swamps. The initial stages of the invasion have gone according to plan, and droid forces have secured the capital city and are scouring the swamps for the rumored Gungan cities. Holding camps have been set up in the bases to secure unruly citizens and important government officials and separate them from the capital. MTTs are being loaded up for another jungle patrol as 2 elusive Jedi prepare to infiltrate the base. Unfortunately, I don't own a young Obi-Wan or Master Qui-Gon minifig. Well, I did it. I went 2 weeks without making clone-based mocks, and somehow I'm still here. Jokes aside, I've enjoyed putting the spotlight on the Seps and getting to work with their arsenal of troops and vehicles instead of just throwing them in at the end of a build as cannon fodder. Next week will be the culmination of all the base videos I've been making for the past 2 months, as it'll be an epic showdown between a large droid base and clone base, where you get to decide who wins. So that's a wrap for this video. Let me know what you thought of my bases down below in the comments, and I will catch you next time, but until then, happy building.